I'm a little confused right now why this is doing what it's doing. So give me a second. But we're gonna get started, and Sarah, I'm gonna come back with the screen in a second because for some reason it's being a little funky on my end. But to get started, my name is Ashley Waters, and I am one of the co-chairs of the Leaders on Loan project as part of LFC, and I'll let my co-chair introduce herself as well.
That's me. I'm Sarah Lynn. I also work for the Mental Health Association, and Ashley and I both also sit on the LFC Council. So doing this Leaders on Loan program and sharing it together is a great thing to bring to that council and to be able to share with you all today. Thank you for hopping on. We're excited to see how many folks were on this morning.
All right, so we're gonna see if this works now. We'll see if it'll do its thing. You guys are seeing what I'm doing? That's just live. All right, is everyone seeing the presentation now? All right, beautiful. Not
Yes.
sure what's happened in there before. All right, so in case you don't know what Sarah and I look like, here are our lovely faces again. Thank you for joining us. And we're here to answer your questions today, but also throughout the process over the next several weeks. So, for those of you who have not gone through LFC and you may not be familiar with what Leaders on Loan is, or it's also known as the LOL project, as part of Leadership Frederick County, there is this collaboration between LFC and the Nonprofit Alliance to allow our leaders that are part of the LFC class to share their strengths with nonprofits that need some extra assistance. We know that most of the nonprofits in our community are very small, with small paid staffs, if any, and rely on volunteers. And so this is a partnership between the class, the Nonprofit Alliance, and our local nonprofits to allow the class to experience what it's like working with nonprofits, to really develop a better understanding of what nonprofits, deal with on a regular basis in terms of trying to create impact in our communities. And like I said, then the class members get to use their strengths and really allow a nonprofit to achieve a product they otherwise probably wouldn't be able to do, or at least wouldn't be able to do within the next year. So we work over the next several months to identify these Leaders on Loan projects as the class is being formed to really create a valuable experience for everyone involved. So that's a really high level understanding. But today we're going to go ahead and talk about how you get involved. It is a competitive application process. We do wish we could have 10 to 15, 20 projects every year, but we know that 7 to 8 is typically our sweet spot. And so, what we're going to talk about today is how you develop a rockstar project for the LFC class that's coming up. What the process will look like for you as we go through and kind of coach that project, and then how to help you understand from people who've actually hosted these projects before from a nonprofit perspective, allow them to share kind of the good, the bad, the ugly, all the good stuff. So the full application is on the chamber website, but we're going to walk through a lot of details today. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Sarah, who's going to talk about the phases of the partnership and what the next few months would look like if you're selected for a project. Sarah?
Thanks, Ashley. So, like Ashley said, this comes in a couple of phases. This is not a quick turnaround kind of project. It's a project that if you apply and get accepted, it will be something we'll be working on for basically the next year because it'll go through next May. So, phase one is right now. It's what you're doing. You're attending this training. You are hopefully going to go after this and complete your project application. Like Ashley said, it's on the website, on the chamber website. It's linked in a couple places through this presentation as well, and we can probably put it in the chat. That's probably an easy thing to do for us too. After the application process, though, we do follow-up interviews, and for each nonprofit that goes with actual LOL leadership. So it's usually some folks from the Nonprofit Alliance Steering Committee, some LFC folks, whoever, maybe some coaches that we've had working with us in the past. And we kind of, the interview process we've found over the past few years has really helped people to kind of more hone their project, basically. Sometimes the project in the application is a little confusing or it's a little all over the place. So by us sitting down and talking to you, we've gained some really cool projects that way. Because if we had just read the application and hadn't had the conversation with the nonprofit leader, we probably would have denied it because it was very confusing or just seemed like it was either too much or too little for the class. So that interview process is kind of new still, and it's really been, I think, one of the most helpful things for us to help choose the projects to go move forward. So after the interviews, then it's just you guys awaiting our final decision about your application. And this all happens May to June. We do have the more specific dates for you a little bit later in this presentation as well. After the application phase is the pitch and selection phase. That's phase 2, happening July to August. So Whitney Hahn and Ben Trawick offer a pitch class. It's like Pitch 101. And so if you're accepted into the LOL as one of the LOL projects, you get to attend this pitch class with Whitney and Ben. And I'll tell you, it's such a cool thing to be able, it's like a real benefit to be able to attend this class because you have two marketing and storytelling experts who are going to sit with you and really hone your pitch for this class. They sit with you and they go through what's your project, how do you want to talk about it, who's your audience, all of the things that marketers need to really speak about and pitch a project to someone, almost like you're going on Shark Tank. Like you really want to be able to pitch it well so that people are interested and want to choose to be a part of your project. So there's a training for that. After that, you have time to work on it on your own. And then Whitney again offers another time for you to come and refine your pitch with her. And that's really just kind of, again, making sure that what you've taken from the first lesson goes into the next one. She does a great job with it. Your pitch is ultimately a video. And Whitney talks about a few different ways that you can do the video. One of my favorite ways is Vimeo. If you use the Vimeo app, you can literally just sit at your laptop and do the video. You don't need any special equipment. You don't need anything crazy. And the videos are short. So they're not 15 minutes. They're like 3 minutes. So you have to get your point across quickly and well, so that the teams from LFC want to pick your project. After you submit your pitch video, then you are just waiting for the LFC class to start, and that's when team selection will happen. Phase 3 is your actual project activation. So when the new LFC class comes in, they have their opening retreat in September. That's when they find out which project they are assigned to. And how they get assigned to projects is they get all of the pitches that are done, and then they rank them 1 through 7 or 8, however many we have. And we try to give folks their top pick if we can. Sometimes there's conflicts. If it's like a board member of a project who wants that project, we're not going to give them that project. They're going to get a different one. That's not cool. So we really take our time and kind of comb through and make sure we think we've got a good group of leaders for every project with a diverse range of abilities and skills that can really bring some cool stuff to your organizations. So in that phase 3, they will already know what their projects are. In September to May, you will meet with that team or someone from your organization, a leader from your organization, whoever your point person is. You'll meet with your Leaders on Loan team and hopefully their coach. We do offer an LOL coach to every team. And these are folks who are LFC alumni. They've been through these projects. A lot of them have done this for a number of years. And they kind of help both sides stay on track so there's not mission creep, there's not scope creep, and that everybody is happy and successful with their projects. Together with your team, you'll develop an MOU for the project. And again, this is so that there's not that scope creep and that mission creep. We really want them to stay on task and give you the deliverables that are expected based on your pitch and applications. Throughout the year, so September to May is when the LFC class happens, you'll get support from the team throughout the process. Ashley and I are there to kind of support the class and support you guys. And we're also there to support the coaches. So anything that's like leaders on loan, like, oh, flashing lights, come and talk to us. We're the ones who can handle that and talk through how to make sure that everyone feels successful at the end of the project. And then finally in May, they do the class and teams do a presentation to whoever your point person is and whoever we're hoping leadership in your organization, maybe your board, depending on what your deliverables are, who that would be presented to. And the class also then does a presentation to their classmates that is what their experience of this project was. So that all happens within that September to May timeframe. That was a lot, but Ashley, I think it's back to you.
Perfect. So we've talked a lot about deadlines, and we're going to give you this list a few times today, just because we want to make sure you really kind of understand the full scope, like Sarah was mentioning. So again, we're here together today. We're going to talk about projects in more detail in a second, but your application is going to be due by June 16th. We will be hosting those interviews that Sarah mentioned the week of June 30th, and our goal is to make sure you're notified by July 9th. And then, like we mentioned, throughout July, you're going to have those free trainings with Whitney and Ben, with your video pitches being due August 11th. So this is a nice little summer project for everybody. It really does kind of work its way along. If you make it through phase one, then we go to phase two, and then we kind of have a little bit of a waiting period before we hit phase three with the class. So again, you can take a picture of this now. We'll talk about it later as well. But it really is every few weeks something is moving along for these deadlines. So let's talk a little bit more about projects, right? So we've talked about high level what this is, right? We have Leadership Frederick County, all these about 50 leaders coming into this program. They're learning about Frederick. They're learning about themselves, but we want them to learn about our community as well, especially through the lens of nonprofits. And so the projects are really what nonprofits need support with at the time. The biggest thing about projects, based on the deadlines we just gave you, is to remember that you're thinking about a project right now in May that you're not going to get the deliverables for and the outputs for until next May. So it needs to be something that can work with that timeline. All right. So that's like one of the biggest things we see. You're not going to be able to get the deliverables in January, February, March. So it does have to be a project that maybe isn't so time sensitive, but it's something, like I said, like I always say, it's in my when I have time pile, like my when I have time folder. That's a perfect thing to deploy LFC classmates on. So we kind of have 5 different categories that projects can fall into. You can see on the screen that would be technology support. So if you want to talk through what a website redesign and update would look like, if there's certain technology audits or trainings on social media for your board or for staff. There's a lot that falls into marketing and development. This tends to be a very common section here. And you can see whether that's grant research, trying to develop a sponsorship plan, case for support development, membership drive development. There's a lot that goes into marketing and development. Human resources, we've seen a lot of these come up in recent years, whether it's helping to create a human resource policies handbook, maybe a recruitment and retention plan for your staff, uh, board trainings, volunteer trainings, that would kind of fall in that area. I will say the financial planning area is probably the least used. But again, it is available if anyone has certain financial planning and kind of sustainability conversations they want to have. And then lastly, we do have like an innovators category. If it doesn't happen to fall into one of these things, we still will certainly consider it, and make sure that we feel like it's something that the class can support. The biggest thing is that LOL projects are around research, strategy, and planning. They will not be implementing the project. So, for instance, if you would like the Leaders on Loan project to be around your website, please know that they can help create a navigation tree and do research and provide best practices, and really help you plan for what an RFP could look like. But they are not, as an example, going to be the ones building the actual website, right? So, again, these are not technical experts in the area. They are also doing research based on your mission, the project, and the community to try to pull together the best amount of resources and deliverables that will be helpful to you. So I know that that was also a lot, but again, really any project that you can think about probably falls in one of these categories. And if it doesn't, that innovative category is there for you as well. And as a reminder, think next May, what would be really helpful for you in May of 2026 to have in your pocket. So you have this idea, right? So you have this idea in your head and you're ready to go ahead and do your application. You're going to make sure it's in by that June deadline. How do you hopefully have a really successful application? So this is the selection criteria that we use for the initial screening of all the applications. So again, we look at your project overview and goals. Is it clear? Is it manageable within the time frame that LOL has available as part of their LFC class? We also look at the level of need within your organization and if it's going to be impactful to your organization. And so basically, what is this LOL project going to mobilize for your organization? We really want to make sure it's mobilizing something positive in the community. Number three is a big one. How is the LFC class member going to benefit by doing this project? This is a partnership opportunity, right? They are helping your organization, but we want the Leaders on Loan members, the LFC class members, to really benefit and gain a greater understanding of what your organization does, be able to, like I said, mobilize their strengths. So we are looking at what the class members are going to gain as well. And we've started to really look at how can this project help more than your organization. So can it be shared with others? Can it be used for long-term sustainability? Again, really looking at that outcome area, not just the output area. And then lastly, and this is where we get into a lot of conversations in the interview phase, is what is the nonprofit's capacity to manage a team of professional volunteers? We know that volunteer management is really core to a lot of organizations, and many of you do it very, very well. However, in the past, we have had organizations that people have left the organization and they were the main point of contact. Or maybe there are no paid staff and it's an organization of volunteers, and we want to make sure the class has the resources that they need. So really thinking through who's your main point of contact, do you have a backup for that, and what is your organization's commitment to make sure that you're able to support the team throughout their project. They're going to have questions, they're going to need some of your time. For many, weeks or months, they may be working by themselves. We want to make sure that you are there to support them. So it's a two-way street of information sharing and problem solving. So those are the big things that we think about. So hopefully that helps guide what you think a good application would look like. So now I'm going to pass it off to Sarah, who's going to lead us in a conversation of what makes a successful project and maybe some projects that have offered some additional lessons learned. Sarah?
Thanks. So we have a couple people on the call today who have just this past year been Leaders on Loan nonprofit partners. So I want to allow them some space to just tell you how it went for them this year. And so for starting off, we'll start off with Valerie Pearson from Mount St. Mary's Frederick campus. And Valerie, just let people know briefly like what the project was and then what your overall experience was as the nonprofit partner.
Sure, yeah. Hi, everyone. I am Valerie Pearson. I serve as the Associate Director of Recruitment for the Division of Continuing Studies at the Mount, which is our Frederick campus. So I think that probably our biggest hurdle that we have as an organization is if you're familiar with the Mount, you tend to be familiar with the Mount in Emmitsburg. I run into people all the time who have never known that we even have a Frederick campus, which is crazy because we've been in Frederick for 25 years. We just had our 25th anniversary last year. So we really wanted to do a project specifically around our marketing presence because that just seems to be our biggest hurdle. And so that's what the kind of the project that we presented for our Leaders on Loan project, and it was really helpful. I will say, I think that the pitch training session that we did was incredibly helpful for me. Like it definitely helped me make my video and be able to like pitch it to the Leaders on Loan participants, but even more than that, it helped me just like be a better spokesperson from our organization in general. So I think that that was incredibly valuable. And then throughout the actual process, we had a team of really amazing leaders. I mean, of course, I think the LFC in general just attracts really amazing people. And it's a lot of people that I wouldn't have necessarily met just through business card exchanges that pulls in people from outside of the regular networking events. So it allowed us to interact with some amazing leaders that I don't know I would have met without this program. And they were really communicative the whole way through the process, which I really appreciated. And so we asked them to do a SWOT analysis for us, basically going over our strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, and threats as an organization, and then come up with marketing, basically just marketing strategies or like tactics, areas of improvement, recommendation type stuff. And this project hit at a really great time for us because we just got a new president at the Mount. And so at the final presentation, we were able to have the team present to our marketing department and our new president's consulting firm, which was really helpful. So I don't know if I would say that the end results were surprising to us. I think we were aware already of kind of our challenges as an organization, but I do think it was incredibly validating to have a team of really amazing and well-established leaders in our community be able to recognize what we've been saying for forever and then present that to our leadership. Um, so in that way, I think it was incredibly helpful, and they did come up with other ideas that I'm not sure that we would have originally like come up with on our own. So it was a really valuable program, and I'm excited. I think that it's going to continue to lead to hopefully more partnership opportunities and things like that with our team members. So I had a great experience, and if anybody has more questions, you can reach out to me anytime. I'm happy to talk more.
Thanks, Valerie. And I ended up actually having to step in as the coach for Valerie's team. So I totally agree. I think that they did a good job of working together, but also on their own. And so to create something during their presentation, they even tweaked they did a mock presentation and then a real presentation. So that was a really cool project for them to work on. And that is now a team that is so dedicated to that Frederick campus. You should hear them talk about it. They're like, how dare you think of only Emmetsburg? Like they get really passionate about it when they talk about it. So it's really, again, this cool opportunity to get people really involved that you may not have otherwise. So
Yeah,
thanks, Valerie. Thanks for sharing your experience.
of course. Yeah, I definitely feel like we got a whole team of cheerleaders out of it.
You definitely did. Other person we have on today who's also an LFC alum and a Leaders on Loan nonprofit partner from this past year is Nikki Falzone. Nikki, are you there?
I am. Good morning, everyone. So I have had the opportunity to work with the Leaders on Loan in three different capacities or three different times. So the first time I was definitely the person Ashley is talking about, where we created this great product. Someone pitched it, that person left our organization, and then we scrambled to figure out who was going to manage it. So that was one of our most interesting ones. And I will say that we were able to pivot, and the MOU was really important in that situation. We were able to kind of go back to that and figure out what our organization needed as we were in that transition. And the leaders in that group certainly adapted to that challenge, and I think did a really great job given the crazy roller coaster that we were on that year. So then last year, 2 years ago now, oh my gosh, I was a Leaders on Loan participant. So we supported an organization, and so doing all the things that you guys are doing now, I actually got to go through that process and things like that. And that was really interesting. And I think that that best positioned me for the project that we just completed last year or this in May with the group. So we were the recipient of a fantastic group. And what we did is they focused on kind of how our brand is seen in the community. So looking at a lot of things. I think that I actually came to Sarah and Ashlyn and was like, I want to touch all the buckets. How can we do all the things? And they were like, pump the brakes. So that was really helpful. We picked a category and really dialed in what the need was. And I will say that our Leaders on Group Loan group was exceptional because they kind of went into some of those other buckets for us, which was really incredible to see. So I would say that the MOU and really understanding kind of what you want to do, having a very clear idea of what your end goal was. Like I've gone into all of these with these bright ideas and kind of this lofty goal of what I want to do. But I think that if I could, when we do it again, hopefully one day, I would go in with really set, like, this is the deliverable I would like to see the group produce, because the leaders will be innovative and they will be incredible, and they will kind of take whatever idea and tangibles that you want, and they somehow will make that a reality, which is absolutely incredible. So this year, they went through, we did a SWOT analysis. They looked at marketing. They looked at survey results on how Platoon is seen out in the community. If they were familiar with the brand, if they actually knew the services, which was our lesson learned, that we learned that everyone knows it's a veteran organization, but not really sure exactly what we do. So that was able to help us market specific services and programs and kind of clean that up. And they presented a fantastic book at the very end that had all of that information, a marketing plan, and even idea. They went a step farther, and it was even ideas of how we can implement that. So they didn't just leave us with, hey, here's some ideas, good luck. They really went this like the final step and said, this is like some things that you could do. Here's an example of a social media post. Here's an example of a survey. Here's an example of an article that you could put in your newsletter. And that was just the project. I mean, I communicated with them throughout the entire project. There is kind of this lull. You get really excited, you do your MOU, there's a lot of conversations, and then there's a couple months and you're like, well, what happened? And just being on the other side, understanding that they're gearing up with their retreats, they're going through all this stuff, they're trying to find this new tempo with leadership Frederick County being involved, and then what they're trying to do with LOL. So there is kind of like that dip and you're wondering what's going on. And then, you kind of have that next meeting and they come with all these great ideas and things, and you kind of get excited again. And then you get to see that progression. So it's an absolutely incredible program. Um, I would just recommend really knowing what you want your tangibles to be and what you expect them to be able to present to you, not just an idea, but like very specifically something that you want to take out of it. And really they will do the rest and knock it out of the park. And just like Valerie, if anyone has any additional questions from any of those crazy encounters that we've had throughout the process, I'm happy to answer those.
Thanks, Nikki.
Yep, absolutely.
I know you guys had, again, like you said, really successful project this year. Your team at the final retreat was like, they couldn't have had better things to say about working with Platoon 22. And again, you now have like a small group of cheerleaders who will be with you and working with you and cheering on Platoon for everything that they do. So now you guys have heard some of these like successful LOL projects, but there are also things that I don't like to call them unsuccessful, because I think all of our LOL projects have some bit of success to them. We'll just call them success alternatives. I think that's what I called it with the class this year, because sometimes they're just about the learning process. These projects, Ashley and I talk about this all the time. Overarchingly, the LOL project for the LFC class is a lesson in communication, because it's a group project. We've all been there. Group projects, it's like one person does the work, and that's not how this works. LFC, every single person in the group does work on the project. But I love that Nikki brought up that you, as the nonprofit participant, will see a lull, and it makes you a little nervy. It makes you a little like weirded out. Like, did they forget about us? What are they doing? But no, it's a group of 6 to 10 individuals trying to fit their schedules together and talk about their strategies while then going off working separately to come back together. So it just takes a lot of time and coordination. We really say that the main 3 things for an LOL project that makes it successful is communication, a narrow scope, and true teamwork and partnership. I think Valerie and Nikki both hit on all 3 of those things, talking about very well about their projects and why they were so successful. So really, you can see the successful alternative program projects really are those ones where the nonprofit goes in and doesn't really have a full idea of what they want delivered at the end. the team or the team doesn't do a good job of communicating and no one lets us know. That's a big part. We had one team this year who couldn't ever figure out a time to meet with their coach. And so they just said, we don't need them. And then they didn't make the time to finish communicating with their nonprofit over their specific feedback they had been given through about halfway through. And so communication just kind of went the way of the dodo and the team delivered something at the end that was so helpful to the organization, but it wasn't what the organization initially wanted it to be. And even at the retreat, when the team was talking about their experience with the project, they said they wish that they had used their coach more. They wish that they had communicated better. And that really would have just made all of the problems that they had go away. So Ashley and I and Kimberly through leadership Frederick County, we try to do a good job of staying on top of the teams, making sure just little gentle reminders. But these are adults, these are leaders in our community, and we know that once they start in on these projects, they're bought in, they're interested, they really want to do a good job for the folks that you all are serving. So again, I'm not going to say that I don't think we've really had any truly unsuccessful projects. There's always some bit of it that the nonprofit still uses, but sometimes it is that matter of connection, communication. If that breaks down, you're going to have problems. Ashley, what do you think?
No, I completely agree. And again, we have so many people that are a part of this project that please just reach out to us, right? We mentioned that there's going to be a liaison from your organization that works with the team. We have a coach from our perspective that works with the team. Sarah and I are around. Kimberly is with the class every day that they are together, whether it's a content day or one of their leadership development days. And so we are reminding them as much as we can without babysitting them. But at the same time, we need the nonprofits to be that partner as well and to know that you have a voice in this process. And so to please make sure you're looping us in if we can ever be of support to you as well. All right, so to wrap it up, we're going to put the deadlines up in front of you again, just to kind of walk through the process one more time. So today you're here, you have that mandatory pre-application briefing, so check that off your list. You have a few weeks through June 16th to get your project in. Sarah and I and Kimberly are here if you have any questions or if you want to talk about things even before you submit them. We're happy to, grab coffee, hop on a phone call, whatever it would be to be helpful to you, because then we want this project to be impactful and helpful to you, and we also want to make sure it's a good learning experience for the class members. If you want to make a note, that last week of June, there's going to be some virtual interviews. They typically last 15 to 20 minutes. They are not long conversations, but they really just do help us narrow in some things and to ask some important questions to make sure we're choosing the best variety of projects for the class. And then you'll know right in early July whether or not you are selected. And from there, just make a note that you will have a few mandatory things to participate in July. We'll get those dates of those activities out to you as soon as you're selected. And then if you are selected, that video pitch will be due August 11th. And please don't worry about it. Whitney and Ben make it so easy. They give you all the tech tools that you need. And people that walk in being like, I'm not a techie person, trust me, they're going to make the storytelling super easy and give you the tools to make it easy as well. And this is one of the things that started during COVID that we loved so much that we kept because it allows you to also stop and restart. Nonprofits used to have to pitch in person. When I was in LFC, they pitched in person, and once you were up there, you said what you said, and you kind of couldn't go back and rework it. So hopefully the video allows you to feel like you're putting your best foot forward and getting some of those jitters out that we know sometimes happens as well. So August 11th is that due date. So we've shared a lot of information. And we know many of you have experienced LFC through one lens or multiple lenses. But as you can see in these pictures, it really is great to see all the connection, the excitement, the girls on the run team in the middle. really enjoying their project. So we hope you consider applying for the program, if not this year, in future years. And we will now pause. I'll stop sharing my screen and we can have a conversation and answer questions from folks. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat or you can just unmute and ask them too.
Hey, Ashley, this is Susan Leftwich. I do have a quick question. So I work for an organization. It's a nonprofit organization. It's a national nonprofit, but we are based here in Frederick, and we do a lot on the local level. Is there? I heard what you said at the beginning about it being about local small nonprofits. So would we even be in consideration? Is it worth us moving forward in the process and applying, or is this going to be more towards the smaller local nonprofits?
Please apply.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
add that we do take into consideration where your impact is made. And we do know that the class would like to make sure they want to know they're making an impact in their community. So while you are a national organization, when you do your application, I would hyper focus on the impact you are making in Frederick County. And the resources for the team that are going to be present in Frederick County. So yeah, large, small, all volunteer led, paid staff led, $1 million budget, $250,000 budget. You'll notice in the application we ask those questions mainly to make sure the class is prepared to know what kind of organization they're going to be working with, because that's important. But again, if you have a local presence and you're making local impact, it doesn't matter the scope or the scale of your organization. That's what we want the class members to achieve.
Okay. Thank
Ashley, I'm
you.
gonna Ashley, I'm gonna read out this next question.
Perfect.
So Melinda says Met, which is Maryland Ensemble Theater, has been fortunate to work with LOL twice. We have then been challenged to implement due to our small staff size. Do you have recommendations about how to navigate this proactively during the process to make sure it's achievable or scaled?
So I feel like I'm reading this question two different ways. So I'm going to maybe answer two different ways here. So first, I think that when you do have a small team, that narrow focus is going to be really, really important to make sure that you feel like you can match the energy and the product that's coming out. And I think in the past, the Met has done a really great job at that, knowing what their projects have been. The biggest thing I'll say about implementation afterwards, and then Sarah, please add your thoughts as well, is I don't think nonprofits take advantage of the new cheerleaders that they just pulled in a very thoughtful and strategic way. And I get it, right? Nonprofits, everyone's busy. But you have people who are built in and ready to become committee members and potentially board members. And a lot of times that like next opportunity and ask isn't necessarily put in front of them at the right time, right? So if you have this project and they deliver this great deliverable and then your concern is that you're not going to be able to implement the project, one, either it's not the right time for the project, or two, is there a way that you can pull in those team members and say at the end in an optional way, right? We are really excited about implementing this project, but we need more resources. Or are you or someone you know interested in partnering with us outside of LFC to help us move that forward, right? There's no requirement that anyone in an LFC LOL project end up on a board. That is not an expectation we set. However, it is a great opportunity for someone who has just spent 6 to 9 months learning about your organization, the mission, etc., partnering with your staff. Why not make the ask? And even if you get two or three of them to say yes, I think you're going to be able to mobilize a little bit more. So hopefully that answers, but Sarah, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So yeah, I was in a different role previously, so I've just I've just moved into the managing director role. So I'm going, if we were to be fortunate enough to work with LOL again, I would obviously be in a different capacity. So I just sort of know that that's something that we were challenged with previously and didn't have that insight. So I appreciate that very much.
Yeah, that was a great question, Melinda. And I agree with Ashley. I think that it's also one of those things that for especially folks with small staffs like the Met, if building that into the application process, like building that into as part of your project, not the implementation of it, but maybe what your strategy could be for implementation, as far as like maybe they could build out a timeline for you, knowing that there's only a couple people to do this, if building out a strategy and then maybe saying this strategy might take 2 volunteers added on to help you, so then it gives us um a little more tangibility to that afterwards part. But yeah, that was a great question. I think that's definitely one I think we would have heard from that will affect other people's applications, so that's great. Where do we go to apply for it? Let me grab the link and I will put it in the chat.
I have a question about, hi, Amanda Whitener from Women to Women Mentoring. I have a question about confidentiality. So, in a hypothetical, are there systems in place for folks who are working on an LOL project to protect confidentiality, names, personal information, if we're asking them to access different resources that might have information about people they know, people they don't know, especially when it comes to like board members, staff members, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we encourage all nonprofits to follow whatever process they have for
Yeah.
other volunteers as well. So if they're going to be working with information, do you have a confidentiality statement that you use for your board members and volunteers? Have them sign it. If anyone needs help with those forms, we are happy to help you and provide some templates for you as well. But yes, you can put all of those things in front of the class.
Great.
We've never had anyone balk or be surprised at that. At the retreat, we do a little bit of nonprofit 101 with the class because we realized over the last several years that we don't want to assume people are all coming to the table with the knowledge of the nonprofit world. And so we do cover some of those aspects in important notes as well. So again, you certainly can have them sign anything you would like. There is nothing across the blanket that we do for all projects because they're all just so different. But we do encourage all organizations to follow whatever process works best for them.
Makes sense. Thanks.
Mhm. Any final questions?
And again, if you think of some later, you can reach out to Ashley and I. We're happy to talk through not only more questions, but also if you have like a half-baked idea that you're trying to work through, we would love to talk with you about it and really help to get that fully prepared for application process.
Yeah, absolutely. Through Sarah and I alone, I mean, we've been through probably 30 to 40 of these projects over the last several years. So we've seen a lot of different things and can give a lot of different perspectives from that experience in alignment with your mission. So with that, we'll go ahead and break and give you guys a little bit of time left. And remember, June 16th is your big deadline. So please make sure that your application is in by that deadline. And like Sarah said, if you have any questions in the meantime, don't hesitate to reach out. And thank you for considering being a part of this program. We could not do it without the nonprofit piece of it. It is really, really key. So thank you for being willing to partner with leaders in our community in this way. So thank you all. Have a good day.
Thanks, everybody.